am so excited to get started on this topic today, guys. This is a really, really interesting one today, and I'm super pumped that you guys are here. And as always, we're recording this for everyone, for posterity, but I'm really pumped about this. This is a logic concept today that we're going to walk through. And what we've been discovering, I've talked with a lot of top producer friends recently, is that sales skills are missing for some of our agents. And it's creating some obstacles, right? In terms of being able to overcome things that we need to be able to handle to get to the next level of our sales business. Now, before we go 100% into what we're going to do today, and I got a lot of stuff to cover, which I'm really excited about. First off, even though it's a little bit dirty, I got some paint on it last time. I'm wearing my Sin City shirt, my Las Vegas shirt, just as a reminder, because we're doing EXPCon coming up. And if you haven't gone over to the site and registered, gotten your tickets, I would really recommend it. Again, EXPCon, it's going to be in Las Vegas in October. And if you haven't been there before, this is your opportunity. Hang out with other members of the community. Hang out with 6,000 other agents from EXP. Somewhere between 6,000 and 8,000 is what we're expecting. It's going to be a massive event. If you have any questions, ask your sponsor, ask your sponsor's sponsor, ask somebody here in the company, why is this so important to me? Why should I go there and sleep in my car even if I can't afford a hotel room? I don't care. Make it there, be part of the event. Trust me, it's going to change the way that you think, and you're going to get information that's going to empower your career. All right, that's my sales pitch. I make no money if you go there. I just want you to realize success leaves clues, and top producers are all going there. It's not just because they like hanging out with their friends. That part's cool, but it's because there's information that changes hands, and everybody moves forward faster when we move together, right? The old adage is if you want to move faster, move alone. If you want to go further, however, go together. I think that's an African proverb. All right, so go to EXPCon now. Today, let me see if I can get my slide deck to actually operate correctly here. Hold on one second. This is really, really fun information. And it took me a little bit to kind of pull this back together. We've been teaching this for a while, whether it was with coaching clients or with our team. And we found that this particular concept, upside downside, as a closing strategy or as a selling strategy, really moves people forward. We're going to cover what that is today. And we're also going to cover a lot of what I will call sales fundamentals or sales strategy fundamentals. And that doesn't mean boom, boom, or doesn't work. It just means these are things that you need in place in order for your business to be able to move forward. And if this is stuff that you don't know, you're probably leaving yourself behind, and that's an accident. So this is a really big opportunity. Here's my disclaimer. Today, we are going to be covering several super powerful sales strategies. So my request whenever we cover stuff like this is that you only use techniques like this to help people, never to cause harm. Why? Because ultimately, when you truly learn high-level sales, you can convince everybody to do everything all the time. And that sounds great, except that means you could be a manipulative son of a bee, and I don't want you to do that. So obviously, as my dad used to say, when you write a check with your integrity, you can never get a refund. So don't do that. Be a good person. Take care of others. Your integrity is who you are as a human being. Okay, that's my disclaimer. It's also a little bit of a pitch, because what you're realizing is we're going to cover some powerful stuff today. We're going to talk about logic today, reasoning, and how your prospects' minds make decisions. I didn't say how your prospects make decisions. They don't make decisions. Their minds do. This is an important differentiation. Sometimes we think people make decisions. No, I don't make decisions. My brain makes decisions. Most of that I'm unaware of. And then I have a gut feeling, we call it, right? Oh, I've got this good gut feeling. You don't have a gut feeling. Your brain has been controlled and programmed to think and react in certain ways. So we're going to talk about how that works. And our goal today is to become more resourceful and influential as salespeople. Why? Because right now we got to be able to sell. We have to be able to sell. It's a skill and a strategy. And by the way, if you master this now, the next 10 years of your career are going to be absolutely epic. That's what we talk about here in the community, is how to build on a series of skills and abilities. So the very first thing that we said, this training is called upside downside. What's Jeff talking about upside downside? We're going to talk about what are those terms and then how to go the distance with this. And I will say at the end of this, it's probably going to get so complicated and convoluted that I'll just have to tap out and fall off my chair and catch on fire. But at the beginning, we're going to start from zero. What is the upside? What is the downside? What are we even talking about with these things? And these as sales strategies. And I'm so glad you guys are here for this today, because this is a concept that we've been really working on refining, trying to get down to. This is something we do all the time, and it's very successful. So first off, let's just define these terms. What is the upside? Got to love that fish. He's facing up. So that's good. What is the upside? Upside literally means a feature and its benefit and why it matters to the client. Now, sometimes in business, you may have heard this term also being tossed around as like a profit position. Hey, you come in on this partnership project with me, I'll give you 20% of the upside, or I'll split the upside with you when it closes, or whatever. In that case, we're referring to a profit margin. Today, I'm referring to the upside being, what's the upside? What's in it for them? What's the potential benefit to the client? What's the upside of this decision? And then downside is literally meaning the challenge, its harm, and why it matters to the client. In other words, why does that harm matter to the client, and how can we start to contextualize that so that this person can make more informed decisions, and so that we can lower their action threshold to get them into a position where they will make decisions faster? Has anyone realized right now that some buyers, for instance, will sit on the fence, or a seller that got a 1.9% interest rate back when we were giving money away for free is like, I don't want to sell. I'm going to wait for rates to come down because I have to sell and then buy again. And we need to lower their action threshold so that they can make decisions sooner. We need to do that from a position of integrity, but sometimes for us, that's just lacking sales skills. We have the information. How do I get them to understand, right? Without using 6 billion words. If I use 6 billion words and a whole bunch of math, by the time I've gotten to number 3, they're already, but nobody's listening anymore, and they can't process that much information. So we have to be able to dumb this down while also empowering the mind to act in certain ways. So the way that I wanted to handle this today, and by the way, this is super important. So it's freaking me out that I wore my like painting shirt. I wanted to have the Las Vegas thing, guys. So I apologize. It looks like I got bird poop on my shoulder. So nobody judging me. But anyway, I wanted to go ahead and cover today the next concept, which is the challenges of upside and downside selling approaches. And I see agents using this all the time in what I will call the wrong way. And I hate labeling things as right and wrong because it's so arbitrary and it's so subjective, but it is true. Sometimes there's a right way to do things. Usually there's about 150 right ways to do things. But can we all agree that there's usually also a wrong way to do something? Like, there's a lot of right ways to tie your shoes. There's also a wrong way to tie your shoes, like under the bottom or something stupid, right? So we can cover what the wrong ways are, and that's going to provide us some clarity. Let's start with that, okay? So let's get back onto these slides. Upside selling and why it can be bad. First off, here's some lackluster examples. I just want to start off with examples. And we've probably heard these. It's a great time to buy because someday you can refinance to a lower rate. But sure, but the rate sucks right now. That doesn't seem to ease my fear or make me seem to feel any more comfortable with the decision. All you've done is point out that maybe someday things will get better. Let's point out some more lackluster examples. It's a great time to sell because prices are up. Sure, but I'll have to buy at 40% interest. I still got to live somewhere. I don't want to be homeless, right? That's ultimately a kind of a moment again. And it's a great time to invest because there's fewer capable investors out there, right? But I can't secure financing for less than one of my kidneys. So I'm so stressed out and I can't do it right? So the prospect is able to logic their way right back into why you sound like you're manipulating them. And as it turns out, our last point here is that people actually feel like when you're selling just the silver lining, that feels like manipulation. We've even had that in relationships, that can happen. Well, my intent was so good because I was just trying to blah, blah, blah. Sure, but you were still doing this other thing that was awful. Like, that doesn't negate this. And if you study just basic logic, deductive and inductive reasoning, we're going to get to a little bit of that at the end of the call. Manipulation feels like manipulation. And the best way to get past that is to create a little bit of cognitive disruption. We're going to talk about how to do that today, how to pull this off, and how to be able to get people so that they don't instantly go from your statement to the yeah, but. Right? Steve says to me, well, it's a great time to buy because you can refi to a lower rate. And I go, yeah, but blah, 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 right? That's the yeah, but. And all of our clients right now are a bunch of yabbits. That's Lexi's dad used to call she and her sisters the yabbits because when they were kids, apparently they would say, well, dad, yeah, but blah, 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 blah. And then they would always point out the logical fallacy in whatever he had said. So our clients are doing that right now. Why is downside selling bad? Same thing. It's not bad, but it can feel a little too transparent. Let's put it that way. People look at these arguments and they go, well, sure, but blah, 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 right? They just see the challenge. Lackluster examples. Listen, I wouldn't wait to buy because prices could be higher later. Sure, but rates may come down. Well, I wouldn't wait to sell because competition might increase. Sure, but at least I won't be homeless due to rates. But we're seeing where this stuff goes wrong, right? I wouldn't wait to invest because other investors will crowd you out. Sure, but at least I can afford it at all. But so again, people might feel like you're selling a doom spiral, and that feels like manipulation, right? Don't wait because it could be worse. Feels like I'm just trying to manipulate your decision making instead of giving you true options and providing clarity. And part of the reason why this happens too is because we're operating on a single variable. Okay. Joanne says she calls her daughter a yabbit as well. That's awesome, right? Anytime we're selling a single variable, the thing is that people tend to have the mental clarity or ability to be able to process a single variable in real time. If I'm selling to Colby and I know that Colby and I are talking right now and I sell him on one variable, he can process both the upside and the downside simultaneously on that one variable, and he can find the challenges in what I've just said. But as soon as we open up a second variable, there's about 3 million possibilities, and people start really, really relying on you for their decision-making and pointing out what their observations and options are. We're going to talk about how to do that today and how to do it without also giving yourself a nosebleed, because sometimes you start looking at this stuff and you're like, geez, Louise, I can't process this much, right? We've got to do some of this work in advance so we understand how to do that. That's why we're here today. All right. So generally speaking, at least, both the upside and downside selling approaches lean on what we call positive correlations. We're going to talk about what that means today. What's a positive correlation, Jeff? We'll talk about it. But due to how obvious it can feel, it tends to send a trigger to the prospect that says manipulation might be happening right now, and they freak out. They move away, right? It hits what's called our amygdala, and they back off. Has anyone ever had that happen, right? Oh, buy a car now because because we're going to run out of them by next week. And you're like, no, you freaking won't. Come on, they're making new cars every day, you dummy, right? Like come on. Yeah, it's got that feeling to it. And positive correlation is when you have more of this, you'll have more of that. When you have less of this, you'll have less of that. I'm going to point out some examples in a second in case you're still confused. Like, what the hell is Jeff talking about? Okay, so let's look at some positive correlations in real estate. When you have a higher rate, you have higher monthly payments. That's a positive correlation. It means when you have more of rate, you have more of monthly payment. They positively correlate, meaning when one goes up, the other one goes up. That's a positive correlation. Same difference, lower rates equals lower monthly payments, right? We know these things. These are the ones agents rely on the most. And most of your competitors will be using these with their prospects, or for that matter, your prospects, when they're trying to sell them on being their clients. But what I'm telling you is that positive correlations tend to not be the strongest ones to use for sales. And I'll tell you why here in a minute. We're going to talk about how to use the opposite. Another positive correlation. Hey, when there's more buyers out there, there will be more multiple offers, right? When there are fewer buyers, there's fewer multiple offers. It just tends to be fairly true. Some of this is a little, inductive, but we'll talk about it later. When there's better weather, there's more buyers, right? Nobody wants to go shopping when it's freezing cold outside and raining and all that kind of stuff. Right? But when there's worse weather, there's fewer buyers. We've all used that when we're trying to sell people on not waiting until it's summer. Listen, there's fewer buyers right now, right? There's less competition. Go ahead and buy your house now. That's the winter objection handler, if you've ever studied objection handlers. All right. But in today's approach, we need both positive correlations and negative correlations. So we're going to use both today to drive our upside downside sales approach. And we're going to talk about how to use this to create a rock and a hard place for people where they go, well, gosh, Casey, I better do whatever you tell me to do because it seems like you've really got it all figured out. Thanks for laying it out for me. Now, again, I got to come back on screen. I got to say this. I'm going to show you how to do this. You got to promise me you're only going to use this with like good intent and a good heart, because I'm telling you right now, you can put people in a position where there is no logical alternative other than the thing that you want them to do. That could be used to be a jackass, so don't do that. All right, there's my whole sales pitch on that. Please be good people. Thanks so much. All right, moving on. So what the heck's a negative correlation? I'm trying to do it with colors here too. For whatever reason, I chose Christmas colors, so I apologize for that. Everyone's probably craving sugar cookies and gingerbread now. But anyway, we've still got months until that happens. But the red and green, I'm just trying to show you that they're different, right? So when you get more of A, you'll have less of B. That's called a negative correlation. It means when A goes up, B goes where? Down. When A goes down, B goes where? Up. Are there some of those in real estate? Well, sure. What about supply and demand? When you have more supply, you end up with less demand. Now, this doesn't tend to be the one we talk about with clients, but I'm going to starting off with something simple, right? So more supply then equals less demand, right? We can keep flipping those. More supply, less demand, more demand, less supply. But let's look at some other ones that are even better. When interest rates go up, home prices tend to, at least over time, go where? Down. These are harder to track in our minds. In fact, I guarantee there's someone on this call right now that's like, my brain is pooping its pants already. Like this, for some reason, inverse correlations, when I bring them up with people in even a one-on-one coaching call, they're like, yeah, it's got a bit of that. It just means, think of it as a scale, right? Like the old legal scale, right? Where you put something on one side and the other, like a seesaw, and the other side goes up. So that's what an inverse or a negative correlation is. We call them positive and negative or inverse correlations. Inverse just means up and down. Okay. Higher home prices means lower interest rates, or generally speaking, lower interest rate means higher home prices. More listings, when there are more listings on the market, we can expect what? Lower prices. Conversely, when there are higher prices, we'll have fewer listings. Why do these things tend to negatively correlate? Well, there's all sorts of reasons for that, but your job is to know them and to be aware of these negative correlations, because this is going to be the cornerstone of the sales approach we're going to talk about today. How many people, okay, I am going to go back into these and I'm going to cover these again. We'll come up with a whole comprehensive list. How many people already find it harder in your mind to track the negative correlations than you did to track the positive correlations? Perfect. So do your prospects. That's why this is so effective. If you're having a hard time learning this, I promise they have a hard time tracking it. And if you can use two of them simultaneously that are negatively correlated, they go, and you become the expert in the room instantly. There is no contest because the brain can't track the number of let's call it hybridizations, the crosses between all those variables. It's easy to do. Once I teach you how to actually do this in your mind, you're going to be like, oh, that's really easy to look at. It's just hard to track on the recipients. And if you look at like traditional hypnosis uses this, by the way, hypnotists will ask you to hang on to a number, and then they'll reference a series of numbers while you're hanging on to that first number. And what happens is they actually shut down the brain's processors when they do that, which means now we're speaking to the where? Subconscious. I want you to know that this is traditional sales, like way back traditional sales, right? And then we're going to cross hybridize this at the end of this call with Zig Ziglar's translation. You're like, Jeff, you're using big words. I promise. I'm going to make it simple at the end. We'll get back to like third grade vocabulary. Everyone's going to feel real good and all sorts of less crunchy than they do right now. So coming back, right? Higher prices, fewer listings. We just know that these things tend to negatively correlate. Better weather, lower buyer urgency. Hey, do you remember we had the better weather example earlier with a positive correlation? But we can look at a negative correlation there too, right? When the weather's super pretty outside, do buyers feel urgent to buy? No, they want to stroll through fields of daisies and touch the kitchen cabinets. But when they're dripping wet because it's been raining on them outside, they come inside, they're like, let's freaking get this done. We got to buy a house today, man. This is a drag. I hate this process, right? Same thing, negative correlations. Higher buyer urgency, worse weather, those things negatively correlate. More time on the market means the price will go where? Or the perceived value of the home, right? Down. We all know that one. That's a pretty common one for agents to know. That's called a negative correlation. One side goes up, the other side goes down. Let's just flip it, right? Less time on market, higher sold price. You sell it in 2 minutes, you're probably going to get full price or above. Or your client's crazy. Negative correlation. Faster sale, less stress. Well, we could say that that's pretty true, right? Most clients don't like to have to vacuum their house 26 times a day for 6 months. It is a horrible nightmare. Same thing, flip it, more stress with a slower sale, right? So we can use these. What we're looking for are tools here. These are tools. And we can start to point out some of these negative correlations. This helps people to understand some of the logic that we're going to give them. Negative correlation. When rates go up, guess what? There are fewer buyers. Is that true? Yeah, that is just fact. And I'm going to explain the economics of what's happening right now in a moment. When there are more buyers, we have lower rates. It's actually really when there are lower rates, we have more buyers, but nonetheless, they negatively correlate, correct? Causation isn't necessarily what we're looking for. The causation is the rates are down, therefore there are more buyers. But anyway, more seller competition equals less buyer competition. Look at that one. That's kind of fun. I like knowing this one. More buyer competition, less seller competition, right? That's just when we flip the seesaw. I'm showing both sides of the seesaw each way. Remember, when you turn one up, the other one goes down, vice versa. Okay, so ultimately what we're looking for is the seesaw approach on all of these. And I can come back and cover them again, but ultimately we're looking for negative correlation. So we can understand that there's a seesaw that happens in people's minds. Generally speaking, most people who are entering real estate, even if they've bought and sold 4 houses before, this is going to be their 5th one. They don't have the sophistication that you already have if you've sold 6 houses. Let's be honest. Because you've been through the process. For that matter, actually, if you've sold 1 house, you probably have more sophistication than them because you've done all the paperwork and they haven't, right? They just signed on the dotted line and that was easy. So when we start looking for these negative correlations, part of what we're doing is we're looking for an opportunity to start to make some points with people and to look for a sales process that will help them to open to options. And one of those options is the one that we want them to choose. So again, today's about sales. Today's about sales. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to show how do we use this to sell. All right. I love this topic so much. All right. Options ultimately are power. But remember that when we present options to our clients, you pick the options. Now, again, I got to reiterate, you got to be a good person. So you got to pick the options ethically. However, what I will also say is if you can see very clearly that their best interest will be served by making a move now, then I like to lower their action threshold and get them into motion because most people will stand in the way of a good decision simply because they don't understand it. And I don't have to take them to 100% understanding. If I have 100% understanding, but it took me years to get the sophistication to have that, I'm not going to try and take them to that because that would take years. I'm going to try and take them to the point of making a decision, lowering their resistance and getting them to say yes. Find scenarios where your option sells itself. And this is what we're really trying to get to today. So a lot of times what we try to do is we try to make it so that people feel like there's only one option and the only option is the one I'm giving you. And so unfortunately, that's what you need to do. That every single time will feel like manipulation. We tend to do it with positive correlation. Right? Well, you can refi later and that'll be good for you. So do it now. I positively correlated those two things. And then I said, do it now, but I didn't give them enough information. It feels like I'm being cornered. Why? Because you didn't give me any options. You didn't leave the door open. You closed the door and I'm locked in a room with you and you're telling me what to do with a gun to my head. It's a little scary for me as the prospect to believe that I don't have options. So what do? I opt out. Has anyone felt that with people recently, right? Especially right now. Why? Because the options are being presented by the news and the news media is saying, don't do anything. It's a bad time to do anything. And that's because pundits also don't know any of this stuff at all. What's their job? Sell news to or tickets to the news show. That's it. Okay. So why is this so important? Let's come back. If your option sells itself, you don't have to sell very hard. Let me give you a couple examples. We're going to go really deep into why the psychology of this works today, and you'll start to understand what a nerd I am, hopefully. So I call this the rock and a hard place. This is my very first one of these that I'll give you today, which is effectively that we're going to present 2 unfavorable options. And it seems like everything else is bad. 2 unfavorable options initially presented as the only thing that could happen if the prospect doesn't act. So think about this, 2 unfavorable options. I'm going to give you examples galore today. So even if all you can glean onto or hold on to today is my examples, use the examples, that'll be great. If they don't act. And your third option, meaning their third option, is to act. And that's the most favorable for them. And ultimately for me, meaning I'm going to get a sale. Let's look at this example. And we're going to use positive and negative correlations in this example. So right now we have buyers who are waiting. If the buyer waits, and I'm going to walk you through this really quickly. I put it on screen and now you're all frustrated. I know. So Liz, would you mind doing a little bit of role play with me back and forth?
Sure, Jeff.
Woohoo! It's Liz Boisvert, everybody. Liz Boisvert. Okay, so out in Independence, Oregon, Liz is amazing, runs a great team. So Liz is an insanely incredible agent. So you're probably going to know where I'm going with this. But what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to role play this with you. And I want you to be a buyer that's a little bit afraid of rates right now.
Okay.
Fair enough?
Fair enough.
Have you encountered that at all with anybody recently?
Absolutely, 100%.
Every single person who's thinking, okay, great. So just tell me that you're a little bit afraid because rates are at 900% or whatever it is.
Jeff, I just don't know what the rates are going to do. All I know is that if I had bought during COVID, I would be in a different place. And now I qualify for half as much. And I think I should just wait.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. And I understand where you're coming from. What's interesting is that if you wait, there's really only two things that'll go down. And do you mind if I just explain it to you really quickly in terms of the dynamics of the market?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, cool.
I'd love to hear it.
So rates never stay the same. In fact, if you just watch them, they make micro movements even during the day. So ultimately, rates are either going to go up or they're going to go down, which I think is what you're waiting for, right?
Correct.
Okay, awesome. And in those two scenarios, if the rates go up, the truth of the matter is that that's going to equal higher payments for you in the long run. You don't believe that's going to happen, but ultimately that would be bad for you, right?
Right.
Cool. And if the rates come down, are you familiar with what happens when rates drop and what happens to prices?
I mean, I know during COVID, I got outbid by like 10 times on houses.
That's the problem, is that when rates come down, prices skyrocket. So if rates go up, your monthly payment is going to go up. And if rates come down, your purchase price, and so therefore your monthly payment is going to go up. So the third option would be to buy now, and then you can lock in, and that way you don't run the risk of it either going up or going up, which are really the only two things that could happen. Does that make sense?
It does, actually. Good insight.
Oh, right? That's the rock and hard. Thanks, Liz. You're awesome. She's like, yes, but no. There are some elements that we're leaving out of that conversation, which is fine. It's not my job to necessarily explore every single part of the macro and microeconomics that can drive pricing and price structures. But ultimately, the best time to buy is always 10 years ago. So do I feel like it's okay to help them to understand that having a little bit of urgency over making a purchase is a good idea right now? Yes. Do we all know the date, the rate, and the this, that, and the other? Yeah, sure. That's great. But ultimately, it starts to sound a little bit like a sing-songy approach to getting people into making a decision. This feels a little bit more comprehensive. Why? Because I've given 3 possible scenarios. And I explored her scenarios first. Let's look at it on screen because this will help you to see the positive and negative correlations. If the buyer waits, rates will either go up or down. Rates don't ever stay the same. Higher rates means higher payments. That's the positive correlation I was looking for. Positive doesn't mean good in this case. It means positively correlated. They both go up. They're both on the same elevator, right? Negative correlation means seesaw effect, up and down, right? So here's what's interesting. I'm looking for a negative outcome on both of these. Negative outcome, I'll highlight it on here, is higher payments and higher purchase prices. I had to use a positive correlation for higher rates equals higher what? That's a bad thing, payments, okay. And then lower rates equals higher what? Purchase price, that's a bad thing. I found the correlations that are not positive for the client in both scenarios that involve waiting. And then I presented a third option, which is let's go ahead and lock it in now at the lower price with the lower rate, or sorry, with the whatever rate, doesn't matter. And we can get rates fixed later. That's fine. That's when you could bring in your date the rate type of conversation. And you could even be like, there's kind of this little old saying out there, little kind of a country, it's printed on the front of Cracker Barrel. It says date the rate or something like that, whatever. It's, that doesn't sound super sophisticated when we say it to a client, but this does. When rates go up, payments go up. That's not great. When rates go down, though, competition goes up. It drives pricing up. You're going to pay more for the same dang house, which is also not what you're looking for. And even if the rates are lower, you're actually going to spend more over the long haul and not get it back. So your best option, just from my perspective, is to buy now. Tell me where I'm missing something. Here's what I can tell you. I could say that to anyone and they can't tell me where I'm missing something. It doesn't mean I'm not leaving things out. It means they can't see it. It's also not manipulation. I do genuinely believe that right now is a great time to buy. At 7%, at 18%, doesn't matter. Because if you do 10 years at 4.5% annualized appreciation, a $400,000 house is worth almost $250,000 more 10 years from now. I hope everyone heard that. Almost $250,000 more in a $400K purchase 10 years from now. They're not going to spend that on their rate, period. Plus, most of that rate, quote unquote, qualifies for mortgage interest tax deductions and all sorts of stuff. There's reasons why this is good for them. But if I get into all of those micro details, have you ever seen your clients gloss over and stop paying attention to you before when you start talking about numbers? Well, at 4.5%, and you start doing math, and I'm telling you, every time you do math, everyone's just going to kind of glaze over the way that they did in high school when they were in math class, and they stop listening. And now they're thinking about what they're going to do later, and they are not your client. They're like, I'll just buy later. It pushes them further in that direction. You have to make it this simple. So if I were to make it this simple, literally my straight up vocabulary would be like, listen, there's only two things that could happen. Rates never stay the same, right? And they'll be like, sure. So if they go up, that just means higher payments. And if they go down, it means a higher purchase price. Both of those aren't great for you. So I'd recommend you just go ahead and buy now. What do you think? Listen to how simple that sounds. It doesn't need to sound like I'm doing mental gymnastics, and I don't need a calculator in order to say this to them. Higher payment, bad. Higher purchase price, bad. Buy now, good. Monkey buy house, right? It's like that. We're trying to make it super easy. Okay. Hopefully this stuff is helpful. Let's go on the seller side. Yeah.
Hey, so hi, I'm driving. Could it be also that you take it a step further when they're understanding that philosophy that the buy now scenario is also you buy at this rate at these prices. If the rate goes down, value's gone up, you take advantage of the equity, you refi, and you didn't pay the higher price of the property because the rates went down because of the scenario you just delivered on. Rates go down, values go up.
Yep. I think if I got pushback on the first round, then I would go into a second round looking at other variables, just like you said. Some people on that first one will go, oh, that makes sense. Well, let's recrunch the numbers and figure this out, that kind of a thing. Or maybe I'm still a little bit nervous about this or that, but absolutely. I think if we need to go the distance, having all that extra artillery kind of in the background makes a lot of sense. Part of what I'm trying to give some folks today, though, is a very simple way to open the client to believing that this is the best option. And it is the best option, by the way. Again, just want to point out that I don't believe this is manipulation when it's in their best interests. It's like getting your kids to brush their teeth even when they don't want to. That's not, I mean, it is manipulation, but brushing your teeth is a great idea. So here we go. All right. What about if a seller's waiting? Well, listen, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, we could use the same ideas. We just flip the correlations. If you wait, rates are either going to go up or they're going to go down. A lot of that's what's impacting you right now. Wouldn't you agree? Well, yeah. Okay, great. So if the rates go up, higher rates means a lower sales price. And that's not what you want. You don't want to sell your house for less, right? Well, no. Okay, great. And if we have lower rates, you're going to have more seller competition, which simply means supply and demand starts working against you. That's part of the reason why your prices are going to go down. And that's bad too. So if the rates go down, it's not good for you either. So the truth of the matter is right now is actually the best time to sell. Higher rates means a lower sales price. Lower rates means more competition. You don't want to have to compete so hard. Is this making sense? This is called a deductive reasoning approach. It's like if anybody ever studied logic in high school, there's an idea called a syllogism, right? And a syllogism, which I'll cover in a moment, is like all animals are, I think I can do it. Hold on. I think I wrote one down here. Hold on one second. I'll give you one. Because once you understand this, yeah, there we go. All mammals are animals, all elephants are mammals, and therefore all elephants are animals, right? That's a syllogism. A equals C, B equals C, therefore A equals B. And so what we're trying to do with our clients is to help them to see a logic way forward. I'm telling you, if your clients are talking to you, it's because they want to do something and they are relying on you to ease their minds to allow them to move forward. And we have to show them a quick and easy path. And if it requires calculators, spreadsheets, and 3 degrees in calculus, they're not going to do it. They just won't. It's got to be simple enough and digestible enough to take your medicine, here's the pill, right? There's a lot of ways to fix your health. But what do most people do? Go to the doctor, ask for the magic pill. That's the magic pill. That's what everyone's looking for, is an easy button that they can press to easily get to their decision making, right? I'd love to diet and exercise and work really conscientiously at what I ate and eat healthy foods, but instead, can I just take a weight loss pill and lose 40 pounds? Woohoo, that sounds better. That's human nature. We can't help it. Okay, so circling back into this, whoops, I went forward. We're going to draft correlations. And what all that really means is we're going to start figuring out, how do we look for these correlations, Jeff? You said positive correlations, negative correlations. Positive means up, A goes up, B goes up. Negative correlation means A goes up, B goes down. We're going to look for those. So for instance, in this case, what point do we want to make? Well, if I want to show why listing for more money is a bad idea, right? Sometimes we'll have that with our clients. Well, I really want to be able to sell my house for, Zillow says it's worth $6 trillion and you're saying it's only worth 500,000. Sure, I understand that. So I would personally want to identify the positive and negative correlations. I would never call them this with my clients. I'm giving you guys the terminology. I don't use words like correlation. I don't use words like deductive reasoning. I'm using that with you guys because you're smart. Clients don't need to be smart in that moment. I'm not saying they aren't. Some of them are smarter than you. That's great. But you don't have to use, PhD vocabulary. That's okay. Here we go. So I'd want to identify these correlations for listing for more money that would benefit my point. My point. I can write these down before I ever meet with the person, knowing full and well where they're going to go. What does every single seller want, by the way? Every seller want. Do they want to sell for the least money possible? No. They want to sell for the most money possible at the least time, the least stress. So knowing that allows me to show up ready to go with all of this. In fact, once you get used to this, you'll realize everybody operates the same way and you can use the same ones every time. All right, let's look at them. If I list for more, I'll have fewer offers. That's a negative correlation. If I list for more, I'll have less buyer competition, which drives my pricing down, not up. Buyer competition is a good thing. I want buyers to be clamoring over my property. If I list for more, I'll have more time on the market. We know that there's a positive correlation between the amount that you list for and the amount of time on the market. If I list for more, I can sell for less due to that time on the market. That's a negative correlation. If I list for more, I'll have more stress due to time on market. How many times do you want to vacuum your house? Now, the reason that I've had trouble over time teaching this topic to people, and by the way, I will say everyone who I ever know who's mastered this topic sells a hell of a lot. But because even in this moment, I promise you, some of you guys are going, oh, this hurts. Right. That's the reason to pay attention. People who are looking at this for the first time can't process this. It requires a different part of your brain, and negative correlations for some reason are really tough. They just are for a brain to look at. It's hard to think about one thing going up and simultaneously the other thing going down in direct proportion. It's a very seesaw effect, and it feels like I'm in the crazy Looney Tune circus, okay? And so that's why this is so positive for us. Look at the next one. Maybe I want to show why writing a lowball offer is a bad idea. Gosh, Jeff, I really want to write a lowball offer on this property. I don't really care if they accept it. I mean, first off, yeah, you do, because nobody wants to write an offer that doesn't get accepted. You just hope that they will. So I would want to identify, again, positive and negative correlations for writing a lowball offer that would benefit my point, which is don't do that. Well, what are they? More lowball offer. And I say more because I'm trying to show them more and less, more and fewer, more and more, more and more, more and less, all that, right? The positive and negative correlations. So if they write the lowball offer, we're going to have less seller interest. That's a negative correlation. If I write the lowball offer, there's going to be fewer concessions and repairs and appraisals concessions, even if they accept it. So I come down $10,000, I find out there's a $20,000 roof repair. They're going to tell me where to go and how to get there and what horse to ride on and all the other stuff. More lowball offer equals more angry seller. That's not going to work, which means even if they don't accept this one, they're not even going to look at the next one, even if you offer full price. I've seen it happen. More lowball offer equals less likely accepted offer, which is the opposite of what we're trying to accomplish. And more lowball offer equals more stress due to losing out house after house after house. Now that might be 2,000 under, it might be 22,000 under, it might be 222,000 under. Doesn't matter. Lowball is lowball. And a lot of people want to do this, and we can help them to contextualize and make faster decisions by simply understanding the correlations. But when we understand positive and negatives, then we can start looking at this differently. So a lot of this relies on reasoning approaches that were developed by some of the greats in terms of logic, people who kind of laid out what eventually became law, like the way that we use it today, right? This is syllogisms to deductive and inductive reasoning or logic approaches. And a lot of that started with Aristotle back in the day. And so we're going to jump into that really quickly just so you can understand what got us to this. And then again, we'll wrap up with how do we use it? How do we go out and get more clients starting and effective immediately? All right. So let's look at how this came to be real fast. Because once you understand this stuff, man, it just changes your whole perspective on having conversations with people and seeing the path forward. We're training, we said this at the beginning, we're training our minds today to be more resourceful and influential as salespeople. So if your mind feels a little fatigued, it's because it's wrinkling right now. Wrinkles are good things in your brain. That's what happens when you learn. All right. What is a syllogism? It's this. So we talked about it earlier. All mammals are animals. All elephants are mammals. Therefore, right? Remember these from Algebra 1 or whatever. Therefore, all elephants are animals. Hurts a little bit to think about, but it works. It's like a Venn diagram where there's something in the middle, that kind of a deal. In order for this to be valid, here's another example. We'll put it in real estate. This one's a real be basic, has nothing to do with sales. In order to be valid, a contract for the sale of real estate must be in writing. This contract for the sale of real estate, this is a contract for the sale of real estate, but it's not in writing. So it's what? Invalid, right? That's just a syllogism. It relies on the opening statement. The second statement either confirms or denies, and then you end up with agreement or disagreement, which creates validity or lack of validity. Let's go into this a little bit deeper though. Inductive logic relies on percentages of truths. Let's put it this way. 90% of all humans are right-handed. Liz is a human, therefore Liz is right-handed. Is that true?
No, it's not true.
It's not true. However, is it probably true?
Probably.
And that's inductive reasoning versus deductive. Deductive reasoning deals with absolutes. So it would have to be everybody is right-handed. Liz is part of everybody. Therefore, Liz is right-handed. That would be true. It isn't true because it's based on a fallacy. But because I said 90% of all people and Liz is part of the percentage on some side of that, and we don't know which side, and therefore false statement, that's why Joanne stepped in and she's like, well, but hold on, that's not true by default. However, because it was based on a 90%, it's probably true. So this was developed by Sir Francis Bacon, and it's called inductive reasoning, and it relies on the recipient of the logic. This is what gets used by lawyers in court, by the way. It relies on the recipient to decide how true something feels like it is, because it requires an inductive process. I have to decide that it feels like that's probably going to hold out or hold up or turn out to work for me. And most internet marketing, digital marketing sales are based on this concept playing out for a person. Think about this. How many times have you ever seen a product and they say, this is the lowest price we've ever offered, and we're only offering it for the next 12 hours. And if you buy now, you'll get it at this low price. Now, first off, you're having to rely on some things that you believe will be true. I've seen that offered before, and a week later, it's still offered at the same price. What the what? But I decided a week ago. Maybe a week later, it's offered at an even lower price. Ugh, right? Now I know I just got taken for a ride. But I had to I had to decide based on the information I had in that moment, and now the time compression or the urgency or the something that created my decision to act now, right? So we're going to talk about how do we do this with our clients when we're using inductive reasoning with them. So the inferences and conclusions are not necessarily true, but they're more than likely to be true. All right, so let's look at these. In order to buy for the least money possible, you have to have seller urgency. And seller urgency is high right now due to low absorption. So you can buy for the least money possible, and that's what you want, right? Most of you are having to reread that sentence in order to understand what I just said. But what I can tell you is people don't read what you say. And that's why this has always worked in sales. If you've never read this before, it's okay, but it's in a lot of sales books out there. It's just the stuff that most people gloss over in the sales books too, because it's hard to read. It's easier to hear. Close your eyes for a second and listen to the next one. Just trust me. Don't watch it. Listen. Look, in order to sell for the most money possible, you have to have low supply. And we have low supply right now. So you can sell for the most money possible. And that's what you want, right? Now, what happens is it sounds like I just created a really sound argument. In order to have the thing you want, you have to have this other thing. And you do have that other thing, so you can have the thing you want, right? It feels so correct. It is correct, technically, in this case. But what's interesting is it's based on positive and negative correlations and our ability to literally just draft what's called a logic argument, which is in order to do the thing you want, you have to have other thing that I'm about to make a point about. We do have other thing that I was just about to make a point about. So therefore, you can have the thing that you want. So buy now, sell now, invest now. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for that positive alignment. Let's look for one more. Some people right now are saying, I don't want to sell my house because if I sell, I got a terrifically low rate and I'll have to get a new house at a low or a higher rate. And I can't even imagine looking at all of that. And it's just too many numbers. And so I'm going to tap out and wait for everything to look like it used to look because the old times were more gooder than the new times, right? Guess what, by the way? If you bought 40 years ago, even at 18%, you're really glad today that you did. We could tell them that it wouldn't matter. Nobody wants to hear that. So what do we say instead? Check it out. If you listen, it makes this one easier, by the way. Look, in order to sell for the most and then buy for the least, you have to time the market perfectly. And you've actually timed the market perfectly due to low inventory for selling and low competition for buying. So you can sell for the most and then buy for the least. And that's really what you want, right? And the reason I know that this works, I've done this on multiple webinars and multiple coaching calls, and I've never had one person disagree with any of these statements. There's ways to disagree with all of them. All of them have slight logic fallacies built into them, sure. And all of us are in real estate. We could all argue with these statements. The conversation isn't that. It's we're trying to lower the action threshold. And if we can get a person to a position where they're like, I mean, that sounds like it's basically true, but how do I make it all work? Great. We've taken a firm no to a maybe. And Grant Cardone always says, you can't turn no's into yeses. You can turn no's into maybes. You can turn maybe into yes. And we have to open our folks up enough from no to get them to maybe. I talked with one of my friends the other day, he's thinking about buying a house. Literally, this is a real story. I helped him to understand why it's a really good time for him to do that. But I had to use this strategy on him, even though we're friends. Because listen to me, bro, wouldn't work. It just wouldn't. But a little bit of logic. And he goes, well, that sounds like it makes sense. That's all I need. Now we're at maybe. Awesome. Let's have you talk to a lender and they'll crunch the numbers, figure out how to make all the numbers pencil out. But I just need you to understand it's a good time. Okay. We're on the same page. Yeah. Good. Awesome. Maybe. Right. So we've gotten to maybe. Is this penciling for some of you? I'm seeing some yeses. I saw a couple like Cassie's light bulb went off there. That's good. Aaliyah. So this works a lot. It will take a little bit of practice on your part. And part of this is understanding how to use this over the long haul. Another simple version, though, that we've seen for a long time, I used to see this one back at KW, and it showed up in a number of trainings, was the bad weather, good weather, right? And I remember the first time this occurred to me because I was in a training class and somebody showed the good weather script and the bad weather script, right? Which is, I'm going to wait for the weather to be better in summertime before I buy or sell or whatever, right? Sell, let's say. And it was like, so they used there will be more competition in summer. So let's not wait until all that competition shows up and drives you out of the market. And then they showed the exact same script for winter. Don't wait to sell for winter. There's fewer buyers in wintertime. So you're not going to have as many people taking a look at your house. You want to have as many at-bats as possible. Doesn't that make sense? It's the same information being used to sell both things as though both things are both the same exact advantage. Identically the same the same piece of data, just sold both sides of the same coin. I just want to point that out. And this is where we miss out a lot of times and many, many times. And when it comes down to scripting, I see this all the time. Agents will say, well, I don't know what the script is for that. And that's because there doesn't need to be a script. When you understand this, you understand how to handle all objections. You're looking for positive and negative correlations that reaffirm your point. And if you start getting good enough at this that you can do 2 points at once, preferably one with a negative correlation, one with a positive correlation, it's game over. The other person's mind, without a piece of paper, a legal pad, and several arrows pointing to things, can't track it. And they end up believing whatever it is that you say because that's what they have to do. I know that feels deceptive. I hear it, but I'm just telling you, this is classic sales. And if you're going to sell at all, which don't lie to yourself, you're in sales, you're either good at it or bad at it. But if you're good at sales, you're getting the same number of at-bats as your neighbor. It's just you're closing 50% of them while your neighbor's closing 10%, and you're doing 5 times as much business, which means your family's eating dinner 5 times as often, which is great. 5 days a week instead of 1 day a week. Yikes. Hopefully not that. All right. Check it out. Let's keep going. We're on Sir Francis Bacon. You're like, Jeff, you got nerdy today. Sorry, guys. Sometimes we just got to get nerdy. We got to get down in the weeds. Joanne, I see your hand up. Let's stop for a second. Joanne, what's up?
So thank you. One thing that it feels weird to me, that last statement that you made about it's good time to buy, it's a good time to sell. So how could it be a good time to sell if it's a good time for them to buy, and how, vice versa.
Sure.
But one of the things I think really is true is that inventory is low, which means that buyers don't have a lot to choose from, but the buyers that are out there are serious about buying, even though the rates are high. So you want to get one of those buyers who are serious about buying. And also on the inverse, there's low inventory. That means the people that are selling really want to sell. So it's a good time to buy something that people really want to sell, because other people don't really want to sell, which means that this is the time to get a good deal on buying. And so anyway, both of those make sense because the buyers are serious, the sellers are serious. It's a great time to put 2 of those together.
Yep, I totally agree with everything that you just said. And so the process that I would go through to make that as clear as possible for the listener is to write it down on paper and see how can I make this is the exercise that I recommend for everybody in all of this. Whatever your pitch is on this, whatever your approach, because Joanne just used a negative correlation and a positive correlation. It was awesome. I tracked it. It was great. I totally agree with everything you just said. The challenge is for the recipient, even as I was listening, I was having to really track. Everybody feel that with Joanne when she was talking? To really track what she's saying, which will be true for your listener. The fewer words we can do it in, the more likely they are to believe it. Has nothing to do with whether or not you're telling the truth. You are telling the truth, Joanne. You're not manipulating, but it will feel like manipulation if it takes 26 sentences versus if it takes 2 sentences, right? And so this is why the exercise that I go through is I write these down and I figure out how to basically bring them all the way back to what I'll call like 3rd grader logic. More of this is less of that, which is bad. More of that is more of this, which is bad. So do this 3rd thing, which is good, right? Bad, bad, good. Do you want the good or the 2 bads, right? And I'm trying to basically make it as, right there, obvious as possible without dumbing it down so much that it sounds like it didn't even make a point, right? So it's somewhere in there is this like magical gloss zone where things work and they slide right through. And then the subconscious goes, this may be right. I should lean in a bit here. This is how this works. In fact, when combined or compounded, I would say even with what Zig Ziglar used to call translation, which is making big numbers seem smaller and small numbers seem bigger, depending on what you need. Again, this is depending on your needs. If we're talking to a buyer about what something costs, do we speak in, over the next 10 years, you're only going to spend $600,000 on interest? No, that's insane. Oh, we'll say, well, the difference is only $200 a month. Right? Or I might break it all the way down to the day. Listen, that's $8 a day. What is that, a cup of coffee at Starbucks for you to get your dream home? I'm not going to cover what that is aggregated over 10 years because that's idiotic. It'll work against my goal for them. Vice versa, if I'm talking to, I don't know, somebody about, you can work it in the other direction where you use the whole purchase price, right? Sorry, my brain just futzed out on me because I'm reading and thinking all at the same time. See, you can't process too many things, guys. I just made my point by accidentally making my point. All right. Last but not least, cost benefit. This is an interesting thing. And we're gonna make this point and then we're gonna do some live play because I think that sometimes that really helps to drive this one home. I just cracked myself up on that. I got all lost in my own numbers. Blah, 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 blah. All right. Cost benefit is what drives people's justification around what their inductive reasoning validity decisions are. Okay, that is a complicated sentence. I'm going to break it down for you so that it doesn't make it any more complicated. In other words, what's in it for them? What's in it for me is what they're asking themselves. Cost benefit means what's the cost? What's the benefit for me? Is what drives prospects. These are the people you're talking to, their justifications. People justify their decisions. Right now, they're justifying based on, I watched the news, they said it's bad, so I think it's bad. That's their justification. If you say, describe the economics over owning a house, including all of the variables, including appreciation on that asset, your tax benefits for owning a single family home, nobody can do that. Most economists can't do it. And yet we're trying to describe all of those variables to a client. I promise you they won't do it. And inductive reasoning is what we're talking about. It's where there is a slight variable, right? When I said 90% of people are right-handed, Liz is a people, therefore Liz is right-handed. And everyone's like, I mean, no, that's not really true. It's probably true though. And when I say validity, people have to decide how valid whatever you just said is when they hear it. Okay, so we've broken down that sentence, but I made it even simpler. What's in it for them? What's in it for me? That's what people are thinking. So let's look at a quick example here, and I'm going to show you some math. Why would I pay a 7% interest rate now when I might be able to get a 5% rate later? I'm going to show you the math on this. This is just from a basic online calculator. So the difference is, about $411 a month between 5 and 7%. Now, people might say 3% later, and I'll be like, yeah, I mean, you can wait 43 years for us to give out free money again because we have a zombie apocalypse. That's not going to happen. So either you're going to buy a house during your lifetime or you're going to wait until your grandkids are able to buy houses. However, let's look at this really quickly. So that difference monthly, which I can't spell monthly, is $411.14. Over 5 years or 10 years, we're coming out to about 50 grand. Now, I would not personally be showing those numbers to anybody, but I want to know that stuff because I want to make sure that what I'm about to tell them is true, meaning I want to have integrity. Now let's look at this. What I know is that if you look at NAR statistics, they tell us that over any 10-year period, it's been roughly about a 4.5% annualized appreciation compounded over 10 years. What's that mean? It means if you buy a house, it goes up by roughly 4.5% every single year for the entire life that you own that house. So if you bought a $400,000 house today, in 10 years, it's worth $621,000. Now, I'm going to make a point on this, but really quickly, I just want to point out, if you buy a $400,000 house today and it's worth $621,000 in 10 years, is that good news for everyone, pretty much no matter their interest rate? This is why your grandparents bought at 18%, and 30 years later, their $72,000 house is worth $6 trillion. And you're going, holy crap, grandma and grandpa made a lot of money. Yeah, it's because they didn't keep resetting the game clock like dodos, right? They bought, they stuck with it, they paid that Sunday off, and then they got all of that appreciation over time. There's other ways to pencil your numbers, but I promise you this argument holds. So here's where it gets cool. Keep going. Inductive reasoning means I'm leaving out some variables. There's some of this that you could be like, well, based on economics and this, that, the price of tea in China. Sure, there are variables we're not integrating here. Nobody will think of those. I promise it's not going to come up. And it leverages numerical translation, which is what Zig Ziglar talks about, making big numbers smaller for people who need them to be smaller to make a decision, or making small numbers bigger for people who want to see big numbers because that's what they want to see, right? So in this case, if I'm talking to a buyer, I say, well, you'll pay an extra $13.50 a day to earn $221,000 on the property in 10 years. So what would you like to do? Does that seem like a good trade? If I told you for a low payment of $13 a day, you could make $200,000. Does that seem like something that you would want to do? That is an inductive reasoning approach that leverages translation. People are not going to see where the cracks are in that logic. And quite frankly, there aren't a ton. Because the other part is, how many of you have told your clients recently that they can refi into a lower rate later on? How many of you are leveraging 3-2-1s or 2-1s in order to get them a lower rate right now? Actually, that'll save them money. How many of you are leaving out the fact that your clients get to deduct a meaningful percentage of their mortgage interest, which in year one is almost 100% of what they pay, right? Like all of this stuff adds up. But if I talk about every single blessed one of these points, they just gloss over. I've seen it time and time again. Most of my time is spent talking to agents about eXp Realty. There's too many good things to talk about. And the crazy thing is, if I try and talk about all of them, they gloss over because the math doesn't even make sense. They're like, geez, Louise, it all adds up to millions. It's too much to believe. And they start, I'll keep paying 40% over here at Coldwell. I missed. Oops. They don't understand how everything offsets things here. So we come back into real estate. It works exactly the same way. So check this out one more time. Why would I pay 7% interest now when I might be able to get 5% later? Well, because for $13 a day, you can make $221,000 on the property in 10 years. And that's leveraging other people's money. That's what we're trying to get to with this conversation. Then from there, if they ask follow-up questions, I can simply circle back and I can go right into these negative correlation examples and simply use something like, plus rates are either going to go up or down, and higher rates means a lower sales price, which is bad for you, or sorry, these were buyers. Plus rates will either go up or down. Higher rates equals higher payments, which is bad for you, and lower rates equals higher purchase prices, which is bad for you. This is a logic trap. If we were only having this conversation as a person and your job was to tell me why I'm wrong, I promise you're having a hard time right now. If you master this, everyone will have a hard time. That doesn't mean everyone will move forward, but it means if you do this all with a smile on your face and the goodness of your heart being able to shine through and looking out for people's best interest, they will feel that, and simultaneously they will hear your logic, and they won't know how much you care until they care how much, or they won't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So you got to take care of that first and have a real relationship with the person. From there, you have to operate with integrity and tell the truth. But this approach helps people to get out of their own way. And that's what I like about it. All right. I know that this one creates questions because I've done it before. And so what questions do we have? Because I want to give plenty of time for that on this particular topic to say, how do I use it for this example? And we'll look at it. We'll do one together right now. So-and-so won't do what? Because why? Pick any example. By the way, we've pretty much covered everything that is standing in most people's way of making decisions in real estate right now, which is hilarious that we did it in 2 examples, but anyway. If you're watching this on the replay, by the way, hands are not flying up. And the reason for that is twofold. Jen's laughing. The reason for that is twofold. Nobody knows how to disagree with this. And also, there's not a third objection. If only it was that simple. What if it is that simple, guys? Obviously, this doesn't take care of talking to the most people. There's Joanne. Awesome. It doesn't take care of talking to the most people over time, right? That's really part of our job. But once we understand how this can empower that conversation, we break free of where we feel stuck. Joanne, I see you there. What's going on?
Okay, so this is Andrew.
Hi.
Hey, Andrew.
This is an example he had last week, but he wants me to try to explain it.
Let's do it.
So he has a listing and gets a lowball offer, and the seller is so offended that she says, well, then I'm going to repurpose that handmade timber deck that I put on. I'm just going to take the deck off
And rip all the plants out of the garden and do all kinds of stuff and way lower the value of the property.
and destroy the backyard because all that stuff is what gives it value. So if he's going to offer me that, then I'm just going to reject this offer and take everything out of the place and then lower the price.
Awesome. Gotta love people, don't you? That's great. Andrew, right? Awesome. So where I would look at this, Andrew, and it's probably easier for me to do this visually, but here, let's start this because I took notes while you were talking. We're just going to put this on a piece of paper so we can see it. And then I will share that piece of paper so you can see me do this in real time. And wait for it. Here we go. Piece of paper. Coming at you live. Basic here, there. Can you see my piece of paper, hopefully, Andrew?
Yeah.
Awesome. So you said right now, here's the situation that Andrew's running into, crew, and let's see if we can all follow. He said he's got a listing that received a lowball offer. The seller was offended. I will repurpose the deck and lower my value and tear up my garden. And, you know, it doesn't matter. Chop my own arm off to spite my face, that kind of a thing, right?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? So what we need to look for then are positive and negative correlations based on this. Does that make sense? Repurposing the deck. And we have to understand what is it that she really wants, which comes back to her desire or her interest, right? So the seller wants what, Andrew?
They want to get as much for their property as they think it's worth.
Yep. And least what? Stress. Because right now she's being offended. It's stressing her out. Sellers always want the same things: most money, least time, least stress, least whatever, right? But in this case, this caused stress for her that she didn't even see coming. It's part of the reason why she's offended, is because she didn't see this outcome as being a possibility. And so it surprised her. And in that surprise, she's probably a fairly defensive person. It's okay. We don't have to go into that psychology. But what we're going to look for is, what are the correlations with changing the property that's currently listed? And why do they fly in the face of what she's going to do? Well, first off, what we know is that lower value is a thing that she's going to want to avoid, because she's still going to have to go through an appraisal process in order to validate value, in order to get this sale to go through, no matter what, whether it's this with this person or with a future person. And I hear people say, well, on a cash purchase, you won't have to. Yeah, most cash buyers are still intelligent. That's why they have so much cash. And that's why they're still going to do an appraisal. They're just playing bank for themselves, right? So let's not discredit them and pretend like they don't know what they're doing. So lower value and lower value. Well, what things earlier on did we share create lower value? Doesn't matter. None of them correlate to this, receiving a lowball offer. So we're going to have to look for negative correlations or positive correlations for these things. Now, here's what's interesting. Is positively correlated with a lower value, correct? Changing your property. In this case, at least affecting it negatively. Let's call it harming your property. Is positively correlated with a lower value. So not just for this buyer, who probably won't move forward now if you're going to negatively impact your property. Plus, if we accept the contract and then you do that, now you're violating the contract, which is a bummer for you. But what else would create a lower value that she's currently talking about doing, or would increase her stress?
She'd have to do all the work to the yard, and then the place would be on the market for a lot longer too.
Okay, so let's get rid of lower value and let's actually do this one with higher stress, negative impact for her, right? Because we're just looking for the negatives, because we're trying to compel her not to do this. So we're really operating on this side over here, right? I've got to get rid of that. This side over here in order to make this point. So, okay, fine. What creates higher stress? Well, she's got to do all this work in the first place. Let's just go ahead and put this guy down here. Do the work. Still don't sell. Worse house. Oops. Back on market. I would write this exact way. Equals higher stress. Still have to sell. Lower perceived value. So by writing this down, my scripting actually handles itself. And I would put all of this on paper, Andrew. And I would say, listen, I understand where you're coming from, but ultimately you don't want to make less money. You want to make more money on the house. Am I right? Just role play it with me, Andrew.
Yep. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're on the same team. Trust me, I want the same thing as you. That's why we're working together here. So let's work through this, right? We got to figure out where to go. Now, you could harm your property, but ultimately, so we're going to look at options, right? You could harm your property or damage it in some way based on its current appeal, but ultimately that would create a lower value for your property. And probably if that were to happen, I'd have this on my paper, buyer would back out, which might feel good only in the moment, but then unfortunately now your property maintains that lower value. So all you've done is guaranteed your losses. Is that really the outcome you're looking for?
That's what she would do, but that's not what would be the case.
No, I'm asking her.
I have my deck boards that I can use elsewhere.
Yeah, but I want to come up with a solution that actually works for you to get what you want. And what you want isn't less money with a worse house. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's keep working through this together, because it seems like you want to chop off your hand right now because you're angry. And I get it. I'd be angry too. It's an offensively low offer, right? I totally understand where you're coming from. but chopping off your hand's not going to make anything better. And it's certainly going to make your hand look weird. So harming the property is only going to lower the value of your house permanently, and your buyer's going to back out, which means you're back on the market with a worse house. So just to clarify, is that really what you want?
Yeah, it wouldn't be.
Okay. She'll say that too, because she may be angry, but she's still not stupid. Most people aren't. But let's look at it this way. Ultimately, you also don't want the stress of this moment. And this feels stressful. Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay. But if you do all this work, still don't sell your house, have now a worse house that's back on the market, and you still have to sell with a lower perceived value, does that reduce or increase your stress in this process? Increases it. Okay. So ultimately, it seems like you have three options, right? One is to permanently lower your value. The other one is to permanently increase your stress. And the third one, I'm guessing, is to take a reasonable look at how we can move forward with these folks and maybe come to something that works for everybody. Are you open-minded enough to try to work that out with me and see if we can come down to something? The way I'm negotiating with you is the same way I'm going to negotiate with them, okay?
All right.
That's it. And from there, we at least get to a starting point. And I didn't take her from no to yes. Has she said yes to that contract yet? No. But is she still a firm no, I'm going to chop my arm off and light it on fire? Probably not. Or she's firing you. I'll give you the other one there, Andrew. But if she fires you, then she was going to do that anyway, if that happens. So you kind of have to let that go. This approach, however, makes people feel like you've traced the logic and you've found what the potential way forward is. Does that make sense? Andrew, what objections are you finding right now in your mind that she would come up with?
They don't appreciate what she's done.
Yeah, she was going on about people not appreciating what she's done to the property and how much money and time she's put into it, and
right. So we can use logic for that. Well, let's logic.
There's other homes that are around the area that are not as nice as hers that are selling for about as much as they offered. So she was talking about trying to lower her, what she thinks the value of the home is to what everyone else is right around. I don't know. I'm not sure what she's doing.
Yeah. So I love using logic with this. And I'll say something like, well, let's logic this through. If you make the property worse than it is right now, is that going to make people think it's worth more?
Mm-mm.
So do you want even less than what we're talking about currently, or would you like to try to increase market perception of your property? Because ultimately, I think you just want more money. That's what's really this is coming down to. Not that you want a worse house and a more difficult time selling the worse house.
Right.
Okay. Well, let's figure out a path forward with that in mind instead of damaging the one asset that you're trying to sell. If somebody doesn't want to pay me $10,000 for my car, wrecking my car into a tree doesn't make it worth more.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
I would say that to her. If people don't want to adopt a puppy, chopping one of his legs off doesn't make the puppy worth more.
Right.
However you want to point it out, it's got to stick. But the thing is, when we logic through these things, people start to hear it and they go, that makes sense. I use a tone that is taught in a lot of sales trainings called the reasonable man tone. Reasonable woman, reasonable person tone. Sorry, it's 2023. So the reasonable, humanoid tone, it sounds a lot like this. Listen, it has a bit of a sigh in it. That is very effective. And I really would encourage you to learn that tonality in your approach. Listen, I understand where you're coming from. I'm doing it right now. Ultimately, I really want you to take a look at this and let's just use logic to see if we can come up with something that's going to work for you, okay? It's a bit of a radio announcer tone. I assure you, it is highly effective in a scenario like this one. Sounding defensive will increase their defenses and will send them the opposite direction. When you use the reasonable man tone and then logic, you've kind of created a bit of a conundrum in their mind. You sound right. And you sound reasonable. And she doesn't sound reasonable. She's talking about destroying her property. That's ridiculous. She won't do it, by the way, which is the funny part, but people do say stuff like that.
Well, when she talks about taking that deck with her. And I think the car example would be like taking your door off your car and trying to take it somewhere else and fit it on a different car.
Yeah.
Is not
Absolutely
probably going to work.
Sure.
You know,
Well,
and
The best way to think about this, Andrew, is to think about yourself on the same side of the table with her instead of against her. And then the reasonableness is, let's look at this logically together and let's just come up with something that works for you. I'm not saying accept this offer. That's fine. But I am saying don't harm your property because I think I know what you're trying to achieve here. And that isn't it.
Mhm.
And then just trust but verify. Am I right? And she'll say yes. And you want her to say yes about 200 times in the same 1 hour meeting. And the reason for that is because yes is a patterned response. If somebody says yes 5 times, they're like 85% more likely to say yes the 6th time. Eventually, you're going to say, so are you willing to take a reasonable look at this offer and maybe counter back with something that you would accept that doesn't involve destroying your property?
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you don't get asked to the prom, you don't light your face on fire.
Right.
It's another one that I might use. I just like getting a giggle out of people. She's probably feeling snarky with all this too. You got to understand, sometimes people just like putting their hackles up and feeling defensive so that they can kind of get some of that out, right? Ultimately, though, this protects you in that scenario. Okay, hopefully that's helpful, but that is exactly how I would use it and whiteboard it. I'm probably missing a few there, to be honest with you, Andrew. So I would just whiteboard it and I would say, what are all the negative consequences? Where do I see positive and negative correlations? And how do I ask questions that get her to decide that these aren't what she wants?
That makes sense.
Well, I understand, but if you do this, it feels like it's going to equal this. And now that's not what you want, is it? That's when expressed in the reasonable man tone, that's going to help you a lot. All right, let's do one more example with someone else from the call. Thank you, Andrew. That's awesome, man. Good job. One more example. Doesn't matter. Buyer, seller, investor, somebody's dragging their heels, not willing to do it. They're currently renting and they won't buy a house. That's the one that actually trips me out right now. People who are renting, they're like, nope, I'll keep paying someone else's mortgage. But what other types of objections or stall outs are you finding right now in your personal business as you're talking with prospects? Christine, by the way, makes a great point. She says, obviously the goal here is to help them to work through their emotions and remembering what their goal is. Yes, that's always what we're trying to do, is to bring people back to their own personal motivation or drive. The challenge can be if I do that from a position where I'm like, well, you said that you wanted blah, 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 right? I'm deliberately making that as wrong as possible. And so, I know no one on this call would do that. But we can all feel that feels really weird, right? And yet, how many people have done that in an argument, like with their spouse? Well, but you said you wanted da 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 da. I don't understand why you. And then you wonder why they're not just like, well, you must be right. I'm totally on your side now. I'll do whatever you say, right? Like that's never the response that you will ever get to that type of logic positioning, which is also why lawyers don't use it in court. They use syllogisms, they use deductive and inductive reasoning, and they use alignment based on positive correlations and negative correlations. And so I'm trying to give you that today because I've been using this for years and years and it's super effective, like super effective. Give me one more example of anything else that's been, Daniel says, I've got 2 listings that are overpriced and they aren't getting much interest. Perfect. Daniel, are you on the call willing to role play that with me? Where are you at?
Yeah, Jeff, let's do it.
Awesome. Great. See if we can get you on here. Hold on one second. I'll add the spotlight for you. All right. It's Daniel Ramirez, everybody. Here we go. Hey, Daniel, it's good to see you, man.
Hey, Jeff.
If anybody needs a Spanish-speaking agent in Salem, Oregon, according to the screen, there you go. All right. So, Daniel, tell me, let's go with just one of these clients right now, and let's talk through what's happening with them. So just pick one in your mind. It doesn't matter, but I just want, you're going to play that person like you're in a play, right? Like you're acting. This is what we do in role play. So tell me really quickly why it is that you don't want to reduce the price on your house currently.
Because I know the work I put into it. We put a lot of money into it, and I've seen a couple other homes in this neighborhood that were even uglier than my home, and they sold at a good price.
Perfect. They sold at a good price. So let's pause really quickly. Really fun to look at the verbiage that people use and the psychology that goes into it. So he said words like good price, right? So good has a meaning for him because good's a subjective term. Is there such a thing as a good price? Like really, is that a real thing? No, it's all in the eye of the what? Beholder, right? It's all in the eye of the person receiving it. Some people will take $1 for their house. Some people take $1 million for their house. It's all what a buyer will pay and a seller will accept, right? So a good price just means I won't accept it. But he's using words like good or bad, which are subjective evaluators, which tells me a little bit about his psychology right there. Beyond that, he knows that he's done what? He put what into the property?
A lot of work.
Right. And he wants to get a payback on the work that he did in the property. And so when we come to this exact same type of whiteboarding, okay, let's go over here. It's got a listing currently overpriced to sell, right? So it's sitting. That's an important part. Sitting on the market. Do we want to know that? Yes. Why? Because it's negatively correlated with what? When something sits for longer as a listing, what happens to the perceived value of the property and the likelihood of its price? It goes up or down. The longer it's listed.
Down.
Down. Whether you lower the price or not, if you ever want it to sell, we just know that this is negatively correlated. Can't just say that straight ahead, but then also I did work equals want money and want good price. Okay, good. This is all good stuff. And then seller wants, we already got all that. But as it turns out, sellers want the most money with the least stress. So here's what we know. Not lowering price. Lowering price. I might do it this way, actually, on this one. I would say, well, seems to me like you have two options. Don't lower the price or lower the price. Let's look at both. Now, over here on not lowering the price, stay listed longer, perceived value goes down. Why? Due to what's wrong with it. We'll cover how to do this really, really fast here in a second, Daniel. And then lowering the price may stimulate multiple offers. Is that guaranteed? No, I said may. What else? Lowers, or at least opens us up for offers that you do not have to accept. The greatest thing to remind your sellers is that an offer isn't a requirement. It's an offer. It's a starting point. Right now, we're not even at the starting line. We're still in the green room pretending like we're going to run the race, but right now we're not actually even in the race. So if I were having this conversation with you, Daniel, I would say, well, that's great. Listen, it sounds like we've got two offers and our three really options, which is stay the same. We're going to kind of keep getting the exact same result that we have right now. Are you happy with the current results that we're getting on the market, Daniel? Or what's his name? No, don't use his name. Let's call him Bob. Bob, are you comfortable with the current situation? I mean, we're at this price right now. Nothing's really happening, or you're getting some lowball offers. How are you feeling?
Well, I don't really mind waiting. I'm not, the thing that they have told me is that, since this is a Hispanic client, actually, it's funny because they told me I learned this from Americans. She said that they don't, they set a price and they don't drop the price. So they're telling me that they're just going to stay at that price. And whenever a buyer comes that is wanting to buy it, they're going to buy it at the price.
Perfect. And so we could not lower the price and just kind of hold the line, which it sounds like is what your current strategy is. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, let's just look at the logic of how this works in the markets then, Bob. If you stay listed longer, those buyers are going to see your property as actually losing value over time because they're going to ask themselves, what's wrong with it? Other properties at a similar price have already sold, and most of them sold quickly. They got what's called absorbed. And if that happens, that makes your property look bad. Is that good for you or bad for you if your property looks bad?
Bad.
Okay. So let's pause there. Let's look at the other options. We could raise the price. Ultimately, if the current price isn't working, do you think raising the price will make it sell faster? If a gallon of milk isn't selling at $5 a gallon, does making it $10 a gallon sell faster?
No.
No. So that's probably good for you or bad for you, raising the price.
That'd be bad.
Okay. So the third option, the only other option, would be to lower the price. Thus far, we've looked at the other two, and neither of those are particularly great for you. But let's look at lowering the price. It might stimulate multiple offers. At least it will get us quickly into offers, and then we can have conversations about what those are. Right now, we can't negotiate with anybody if we're not sitting on an offer that's anywhere close to reality for us. But if we drop the price, we could open ourselves up to that. And I'm not talking about something huge. It could be smaller. But right now, you don't have to accept those offers, but we don't have them. Wouldn't it be better to be able to actually start having conversations with buyers? Because that's what you want, right?
Yes.
Okay. So what percentage would you like to lower the price by? 1% or a kind of a more aggressive 3%?
I would say 1%.
Okay, great. 1% sounds good to me. Let's do that and see how it sticks. We'll talk again in a week. So ultimately, what we're going to do is we're just going to look at the three options. What are the three things we could do? Keep the price the same. That's not working. Raise the price. That's dumb. Or lower the price. Hey, that'll work. And then we have to simply be able to draw correlations to those. I would tighten that up, by the way. Even what I've done right there wasn't tight enough for me. And I would draw it out and I would try and get it down to a real simple statement. Listen, there's three things we could do. We could raise the price. Nobody does that because it doesn't work. So we're not talking about that. We can keep the price the same. And right now, if we keep doing what we've always done, we'll keep getting what we've always gotten, is probably how I'd say it. You're not going to get suddenly better offers on the property. In fact, the longer that loaf of bread stays on the shelf, the more it's going to look moldy. Or three, we lower the price a little bit, which offers people the opportunity to take a look, and hopefully we can get into conversation with them about what's next. Now, what I might also say is, plus, the Fed's planning on turning up rates over the remainder of the year, which means the marketplace is about to get more competitive and you're actually going to get injured more on pricing. And I know that you need to sell, so you really need to get this done sooner rather than waiting. The longer you wait, the fewer approved buyers will be on the market. By the way, it's going to be about like 1/100th of a point or something like that, so don't worry, guys. But nonetheless, it would by like $1 a month for those buyers. So again, we're going to use the information that we have to just create some boundaries. Well, there's only three things that could happen: up, same, or down. And by making it simple, and we realize that up's bad, same's bad, down's the remainder. We don't even have to call it good. They will choose that one simply by default. But you have to position it this way. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Awesome. And so, by the way, ask that question when you go through this process with them. Stay really neutral and use the reasonable tone. Okay, that's the reasonable tone. And then at the end, just say, does this make sense? Or are we seeing everything here? I want to make sure that you feel comfortable. They'll take a look at this. They'll say yes or no. By the way, they may still push back, Daniel, in which case, then I would set a time, like a ticking time bomb, for a price reduction. So for sellers who aren't selling right now and the price is too high, say, okay, but we have to agree that staying the same for too long is going to harm you, right? And they'll say, sure. Say, great. So let's leave it this way for another, what do you want to do? 7 days, see what happens. And then let's go ahead and sign a price reduction now that'll go live 7 days from today. You comfortable with that? That way we know we're at least primed to move in the correct direction. We'll give it a little bit more time to see if there's that magic buyer out there, but we're not making new buyers every day. In fact, we're losing them every day. Okay. Is that fair?
Sounds good.
Awesome. Cool. Listen, guys, this I know is a bit of a heady topic, but I wanted to bring this to you because I've been having this exact conversation with a number of people right now, and they're taking this out to their clients, and then they're motivating behaviors. They're motivating behaviors that weren't in existence before. So as you're having your conversations with people, be willing to look for your opportunity to create a reasoning advantage where you've put them between a rock and a hard place where the only option that they want to move forward is on yours. By the way, we have a couple cool topics coming up. We have a class coming up in 2 weeks right here where I'm bringing in my good buddy Rick, who started his YouTube channel when he was almost 60, and he's currently getting 4 warm calls per week, asking him to list and or buy with them. Holy crap. And he's going to talk about how he did that. And the reason I mentioned that he was in upper years is because he wasn't some influencer. He wasn't plumping his lips or batting his eyelashes. He was literally just some guy, Rick, who went out there, started a channel and started talking about real estate on YouTube, and he figured out how to make it work. Turns out his son is a video producer, so that did help a little bit. He's going to give us some tips, tricks that helped him to get into action quickly, and he's going to show you the exact strategy that he used to get that moving forward. Next week, we have my good friend Rick coming in here, and he's going to be dealing with 1031s, but not from the perspective of how to facilitate them. How do we find investor clients right now where we can do 3 transactions from one person? If you want to find that out, show up next week. And I think Doug, that's why I was not Doug Blackwell. So anyway, he's going to come in next week. And thanks to Christine Kites for lining that one up. Always fun to have our great leaders lining up great calls for us. Love you guys. Thanks for being the best part of the community. We'll see you guys soon. Sign up for EXPCon. EXPCon. We'll see you guys there. Thanks, everyone. Yeah.